Okay, good morning. We're working our way through Siman Kuf Samach Beis. We're up to Halacha Vav, Siv Vav. And again, we're talking about a situation where a guy washes his hands with exactly, or just with less than a revius. He's got exactly a revius, and then he washes his hands with less than a revius. So these are unusual cases. Baruch Hashem, nowadays we've got plenty of water, we've got plumbing systems, and we've got no water schleppers coming from the wells and who knows what. So it's a different world. But you do find yourself in a situation sometimes where you have a very little bit of water. So says the Mechaba, Notel shtei yodov zula atzma v'zula atzma. So you wash your two hands separately. V'nimlach pirush nisyaetz kashenot l'mayim hashniim. When you sort of use, after one washing, you sort of stop and you change your mind. V'higia yodai zula zu v'shofach al shtein kachas. In other words, you've got exactly a revius, the Mishnah Berurah will explain. And instead of washing, you decide first of all to wash one hand, and then you wash another hand. Now that would have worked. But then you change your mind after washing one hand, and you're going to put this revius over both hands together, which you can do. Right? That works. The trouble is you've changed your mind in the middle, and at that point you've got one hand which is wet, and one hand which is dry. And now when they come in contact, you've got tummy water touching the other hand. That's the problem. So v'higia yodov zu lezu v'shofach hashtein kachas yodov tameas, your hands are tummy. Mipnei shekashetzirif yodov zu lezu lekabel haminiach hamayim hashnim, because when you join the hands together to pour the second water over both, nitzmu yodov b'negiosem zu lezu, they become tummy by touching each other. Tamayim shall gav yod shazu metamei mayim shall gav v'chaverta. The games hayad, metame, the water plus the hands. Netilas Yadayim, and then when you do the second washing, that doesn't help you. Because they have become tomei ala adarab. Gamashnim nitnu bohen. The second hand has also become tomei. The second waters. The only eitzah therefore is to dry your hand and to then do it again. Says the Ramah, you got to be careful not to touch a hand which has been washed with the other hand, and we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah exactly what that means. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Nun Beis, not a lot of Mishnah Berurah, Nitmu Yodov, Demayim Horishonim, Kashehu Pechusim Revius, Temeim Heim, because when you've got less than, again, we're talking about a case where you've got less than a revius of water, and you pour on one hand, and then they are matame zeh. Like we said in the Sif Dalet, v'litzel shtein ke'echos hainu af berevius achas sagi b'zeh. Like we said before, that with one revius you can wash both hands. B'sif Dalet v'hei, and then the Ramah says v'kol shkein lizoy u'mash miloshen zeh the af b'zeh havei hadin de'im noga tzorech lenaga v'lachza v'littel. Again, you've washed one hand and you're going to touch the other hand. Make sure you dry that hand first, otherwise you're going to be metame. V'chein kos v'alavush. Okay, Zayin. Im shifshef yodov zubazu. You rub your hands together. You've got to be careful not to touch a part of the hand which is beyond where the water has gone. Now, the Mishnah Berurah is going to explain. We've said previously in these halachas in Netilas Yadayim, there's two opinions where you have to wash till. Either the knuckles or the wrist. We wash till the wrist, and that way you're sorted. We're now talking about a situation where you only wash till the knuckles, according to that opinion. Be careful if you've only washed till the knuckles, not to touch a part of the hand, i.e. from between the knuckles and the wrist, where you water have not touched, because that is tomei. This part of the hand is Yadayim Askoni Yesem. That part, for truma purposes, certainly this part of the hand is tomei, and therefore if you only wash till the knuckles and then that's wet and you touch that part of the hand, you've got the same problem. Okay, that's what's going on. So says the Mechab again, Zayin, Im shifshef yodov zubazu, if you rub the hands together, you shouldn't touch beyond where the water has hit. Because that will be metame zu ezu. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot Nun Hey, Im shifshef hainu, af sheshafu aleihem revius pasachas, even if you pour a revius in one go, or shekva shofach mayim shnim ashtel, or you've poured water on both hands. In other words, you've done a good job. But if you've touched more beyond where the water has hit, yitama b'negiyos, and that's going to be metame. Chutz b'mokum. Now, this is the important point in Sifkot and Vav. We're talking about a situation where you've only washed till the knuckles. According to many poskim, B'diavad you've been yoytzer, k'mavur b'siman kuf samach aleph, u'lamayla misham, and beyond the knuckles, after in a chayiv, little shom that is the chulin, for chulin purposes, you don't have to wash there. Mikol mokum, l'moshel Tisha B'Av, for example, you only wash to the knuckles. Mikol mokum tumahu, beyond there, there's tumah, the truma tzorech little gam sham, v'lochein metam yoda halach b'nigyos sham, and therefore your wet hand touches beyond the knuckles up to the wrist, then you've become tomei and you've got a problem. Avol im not lamayim ad chiba hakona hayadim azoreh, but if you've washed until the wrist, like we do, ein loch shvan we're not worried if you touch beyond the wrist. The sham ein mokum tumah lekol hapoiskim, because there's no tomei. There's no tumah, I mean, because it's only yadayim askoniyasim, and but if you touch a little bit above the wrist, that's not a problem. V'dad kol ma shetzorech lizoy shlo yigam lemayla memokum shegiu hamayim hurak ba'od yodav lachas. By the way, he's saying this problem is only when your hands are still wet. In other words, what we've said in this sif is this. You've washed until your knuckles, and then your hands are still moist, and you've touched this part of the hands between the knuckles and the wrist, that becomes tomei. That's the problem. So what should you do? Just, if you want to only wash the knuckles, just dry them. Once they're dry, they're not going to become tomei. Even if they later become wet, you touch something which is wet and you touch that, that's not a problem because your hands are tahor by then. So you're okay. So either wash till the wrist and then you're okay, or if you wash to the knuckles, then just dry them before you touch your hands there. Okay, we can do chestel. Notel yodei achas v'shifshefa b'reisha. Very interesting case. You wash one hand and then you want to dry your hands, but you want to dry it on your hair. Now, we've seen previously, way back, that when you scratch your head, that makes your hands tomei. But that's only if you scratch your head. If you just touch your hair, that doesn't become tomei. So you haven't got a towel, so you've got an eitzah, you've washed your hands, you want to just sort of dry them on your hair. So says the Mechaber, in fact, you know what, we'll do the Mechaber, then we'll do the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah explains this. Notel yodei achas, you wash one hand, v'shifshefa b'reishay, you rub your hair. What does that mean? Pirush, kadei lenagva, in order to dry your hair, or lefichach leinitz meyodei, ma she'en kein b'simen kuf samach dalet siv beis shechichich b'reishay. If you scratch your hair, then it becomes tomei. Oba kaisel, or you dry it on a wall, v'ach kachozav v'noga b'oisen mayim, and then you touch the water again, shebo miyodei al harosh, which is on the head, v'al hakaisel, or that water which is on the kaisel, on the wall, tamei, tomei. Why? She'oisem mayim tameim, because those waters which touch the hands, they are tomei waters. V'chozru uvetimu es hayad shenogabim, they're going to be metamed the hand that touched it. Afal gav dechol kama deloi shifshef metarim b'shifshuf, even though that you're going to dry your hands, and that's how you're going to be metai them, by drying them, like you wash them, you dry them. Hashta, however, chos v'noga gora, but now that you've gone back and touched the tomei waters, you've made it worse. If, however, you would have washed with the revius in one go, then that would have been okay. The ein shamayim tameim klal, like we've said many times. But if you wash your hands with a revius in one shot, then there's no tomei water at all, and therefore you'd be okay. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah Berurah on that. Nun Zayin, not to the other achas. Afarish b'chol inyan shall sif zeh. Let me explain the whole, the klal inyan of this whole sif. Hine, mevu le'el b'siman b'sif beis. Da'anotel yodov tzorech lishbech mayim rishonim u'shneim. When you wash your hands, you wash mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. V'harishonim metar ma'yodayim. The first lot of waters are metaher the yodayim, but v'heim atzmon tmeim. But the waters themselves are tomei. V'hashneim, and the second application of water, metaharim oson, that sort of removes the first waters, and that is now metaher them. But only when you wash with the revius in one shot do you not need a second washing. The cost of kan ha'mechaber. Here the mechaber writes, if you just wash one washing of a pochs revius with less than a revius, that water is tomei. Im kinech oisam nitaru yodov af below mayim shnim. If you wipe the hands without a second washing, because lemaisa, your hand becomes tahar with the water. It's the water from the first washing which is the problem. You touch that again, then your hands become tomei. But certainly you should wash a second time. Okay, so you dry your hand on your hair, with the hair on your head. But even though if you touch sort of sweat and whatever, you need to wash a second time because it comes from kuf samach daled. Here, you're not scratching your head, you're not sort of touching the sweaty parts of your head and in between the hairs. You're just sort of touching the top of the hair, sort of to dry it, and you're not actually being metame your hands in that way. Like the Ramah says in the brackets there. Nuntes. Again, we're talking about where you wash with less than revius of water, because then that water becomes tomei. Had you not gone and touched the water again, you've washed your hands once with less than revius, you've dried them on your hair, that would have been enough. Because the water which is on you, now that you've gone and touched it again, you've made it worse. You've got to dry your hands again and wash again. Like we said in the previous seifim. Okay, Peseda, what do you do with that?